Well, hello, everyone. Let's start today with a little question. I'm all about crowd participation. So let's see by show of hands, how many of you recently have experienced stress? Yes, you're in good company. Past week, month, especially the past year. Well, the real question I want you to explore is, how do you know? Do you feel the pressure or the tension in your body? Maybe your heart and your mind begin to race. Maybe you even feel a little uncomfortable at times in your body or the very seat that you're in. Stress, although it is something we all experience, it's unique, personal, different for each of us based on our cultural upbringings, our perceptions, and our beliefs. Will determine why one person can feel excited and another anxious over the exact same event. Now, stress is something that we all can and do experience in so many ways. Yet we classically come to think of it as our primal protection model. It's there to keep us safe from modern saber-toothed tigers, so if in a moment a threat is detected, we can fight, flight, or freeze. And while, yes, stress is our sympathetic protection system, it's so much more than that. Yet we've only told the story again and again and again of stress as the threat, that it has become the epidemic, the modern day problem, that we have become so stressed about stress. And I'd say this is a little stressful, right? There's got to be a better way. And in fact, there is. You see, even more powerful than stress as our primal protection system, it's evolutionary. Encoded within our very DNA. Stress is there within each of us. It's there within you to help you to grow forward, beyond the familiar zone, into the unknown, to explore greater states of resilience, capacity, where we individually and collectively as a species, we evolve forward to flourish and thrive. Now, to me, this is the important conversation. This is the potency that we need to discuss. It deserves to be understood because stress isn't the foe to be feared. It's actually the teacher here guiding us each, calling us in to our own potential. And that's why today I want to personally give you permission to stop stressing about stress, okay? We're going to step into a new portal of vision right here, right now. One that will allow us to now recognize life's limitations are just invitations. Invitations to say yes to stress. Invitations to unlock, activate, and ignite the greatness within. Now, I know on any given day, each and every one of us are going through a greater or lesser degree of stress. And yet, while we're all going through it, what if we could become conscious of it? Instead of being on autopilot, thinking of it almost like we've normalized it, as if it's a badge of honor. Oh, there's so much going on, I'm so stressed. Because you see, at what cost does the unconscious slow drip of life's never-ending inputs and demands truly take on us? Because when the unconscious can become conscious, the known can become known, that is your personal moment of power, where you can all of a sudden become an active participant in your own greatness. You can step out of the unconscious, autopilot, surviving by stress mode, and into the executive functioning co-creator of thriving by design with stress mode. And this is where my story began. So I'd like to take you back in time, back many years ago. I was little, when to say I was stressed at a time in my life was an understatement. I had begun dancing when I was little, and I loved it, went to classes all the time, had big dreams that one day I'd become a professional dancer. And my parents got divorced, and we left our house and family and friends in town to go move out to the country onto a dirt road, isolated, alone, away from the life I had once known with a now abusive stepfather in a highly abusive environment. And yes, this can sound like the perfect recipe for a hit country song. It can be entertaining unless it's happening to you. And so as the chorus came in, my mother said, "And honey, there's no more money for dance. There's barely enough money to keep food on the table." And so they came to an end. But with any sad song, there's always a glimmer of hope. And so as I sat there in my bedroom, in fear, in isolation, feeling hopeless and trapped, stressed, to say the least, I looked up at this poster on my wall. And it was as if in that moment, those words were speaking directly to me. If you can imagine it, you can dream it. If you can believe it, you can become it. And while, yes, the 80s inspiration was on point, literally, it was as if in that moment, my life's limitations were speaking directly to me. Those words were exactly what I needed to hear to know that I could say yes to the invitation, yes to something more. And that was the moment the unconscious became conscious, the moment that I said, wait a minute, I'm not going to let them take dance from me too. How can I sit here and do more than just be terrified? How can I keep dancing? I looked around, I saw my point shoes, I grabbed them, I went down to my basement, and I just started to dance. No more money, no more classes, but I kept dancing every day until years later, my dreams did come true. And I did become a professional dancer and a television personality on the then #1 rated show in the crazy, wild world of professional wrestling. Now, that's another story for another time. But had I not said yes to the limitations, yes to the stress, to the discomfort and the fear in that moment of my life, I never would have had these opportunities present. And thanks to the fact that I did, it's actually what paved the way to my 20-plus career in optimizing human health and potential through uncovering the phenomena of stress. Now, I'm really excited because we're about to dive in, and I'm going to share with you what I've learned over all these years. So after going deep into neuroscience and epigenetics and positive psychology and all the great sciences about how we can express our best health and life, there was the answer. Stress, it's neither good nor bad. Hope that clears things up. Yeah, great, right? Good, thanks, Melissa. Clear as mud because stress is paradoxical. And while, yes, it is neither good nor bad, by definition, stress is simply a demand. It's a demand to the system, and based on your interaction with the demand, your exposure to the demand, and your perception of the demand will determine how that demand is interpreted and then expressed in the body. And categorically, there are two main types of demands that express as stress: eustress or distress. Now, eustress, this is perceived as a desired challenge. It's a beneficial state. So it's where the heart will race, but there's no threat. So you'll feel eager, excited, anticipatory. It's like going on that first date or going into that big job interview. This is the state where our natural resource exists. And eustress is where you want to understand how you can tap into anytime, any place. Because in eustress is where physical and mental performance increase, motivation soars, focus crystallizes, our connection, creativity, and empathy expand. This is truly what it means to be human. Now, distress, on the other hand, this is what's perceived as a threat, as a challenge that is ongoing to the system. It's a disruption that never ends. So this is what we have normalized, right? This is the slow drip, the foot always on the gas, the hustle, the grind, the go, the input, the social media, the pandemic, the politics, the traumas big and small that accumulate day after day after day. And depending on your unique tipping point will determine when your system all of a sudden breaks. And all of a sudden that disruption from that overload of unconscious demand leads to dysfunction, breakdown, and even disease. And you might go, Melissa, please, why would I want to say yes to that kind of stress? That's a good question. But you see, what we keep forgetting to discuss is that even within distress, there's a natural resource state. It's called hormesis. Now, hormesis is the process by which small amounts of stress to the system actually become beneficial. Now, what this means is that by doing hard things in small amounts over time, you actually inoculate the system to grow stronger and live longer. And there it is. It's within you, within each and every one of us, is this gateway to absolute limitless potential and the ability to access your own inner states of limitlessness. Well, it resides by simply remembering our ABCs. The path to be able to unlock our awareness, activate our body, and ignite our lives by the power of choice. It really all begins with awareness, doesn't it? So take just a moment and think, what does stress mean to you? What's interesting is that there's an entire field of research around this called cognitive stress reappraisal. And what it lets us know is that what we think about and how we perceive stress is how, in fact, our body will interpret and respond to that stress. So this means the psychology of our mind is talking to, influencing, and informing the physiology of our body. So whether you think stress is good or bad, you're right. This is also the good news, is that simply by becoming aware of how you do stress, how you think about it and perceive it, in a moment's notice, you can reframe your brain. You can shift from what you don't want to what you do want. Pretty cool, right? So what this would look like real time is if you're all of a sudden going, oh my God, I'm so anxious. You just simply say, oh, I'm so excited. Because what the research shows us is that when we learn, understand, and perceive stress as being beneficial, like you're doing right now here in this talk, that is when we are able to shift our own physiology, our own health, our own well-being. And that's really quite powerful. And just like we can use the body to change the mind, we can use the mind to change the body, we can use the body to change the mind. We've too often thought of stress simply as a mental sport, but it's so much more than that because we are biological beings. So if I were all of a sudden to tell you, like, hey, look, I know your heart's racing, I know you're really in a state of distress right now, but just think happy thoughts. It's going to be okay. Stress is good for you. This is happening for you right now. You're going to be like, shut it, Melissa. This is not good. And so that's when we want to bring the backup. When we cannot think our way out of a stressful situation, we want to bring in the backup of the body so that we can use the body to change the mind. And we do this by way of the vagus nerve. There's a system in your body called the autonomic nervous system, and that's what modulates and regulates the stress response. So the distress side is the sympathetic, foot always on the gas, fight and flight. The Eustress side is the parasympathetic. It is the connect, rest, and reset side. So in essence, we want to have a way to understand of how do we pump the brakes? How do we get the foot off the gas, pump the brakes, to any time, any place, toggle between out of distress over into eustress, out of threat and fight or flight to become the conscious executive creator of the life of our dreams. And we do this through stimulating this vagal nerve, and we can do it in many ways. Now, there's both immediate benefit and long-term, meaning the more often you notice these subtle micro moments and you choose to say yes to stress and pump the brake and activate the vagus nerve, you actually create greater states of resilience and capacity over time. So you can do this through humming, singing, chanting, laughing, even gargling. But one of the quickest ways to pump out of distress over into eustress is through the power of your breath. Now remember, at the beginning I said I love audience participation. So if you're willing to play with me for less than 60 seconds, you will have an instant tool you can use the next time distress strikes. Sound okay? You willing? Okay, thank you. I'm not going to make you come on stage, so there you go. You can let that stress go. All right, this is called the physiological sigh. When we inhale, our heart rate increases. When we exhale, it slows down. Now, when you're in a state of distress, your system's amped up, and so we want to be able to calm it down. The physiological sigh is 2 short breaths in through the nose, 1 long sigh, out through the mouth. And we're going to do that together here in just a moment. But before we start, I want you all to take just a moment and think of a time recently that you were distressed. You felt like crap, you were worried, you were anxious, you were overloaded, and score it. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, give it a number. Do we have a number? Everybody got an event? Because you all raised your hand that you've experienced stress. So I know there's something in there somewhere. All right, so now you've got the number, you got the stress reminder. Let's breathe together. 2 quick breaths in through the nose. Here we go. 2 quick breaths in. 1 long sigh. Out through the mouth. 2 quick breaths in. 1 long sigh. Out through the mouth. Last time. 2 in. 1 long sigh. Out through the mouth. Now check back in. Notice your body. Notice your mind. Notice your score. Is it still the same intensity? We didn't change the stress. We just changed our mind's response by way of changing our body. And this is the moment when you recognize that stress is a choice point. So whether we choose to use our mind to change our body or our body to change our mind, it is in that moment that we can either unconsciously collide into the chaos or we can consciously connect with our capabilities. And just like stress is a mental and physical choice, it's also a biological choice. You see, you are comprised of upwards of 100 trillion cells. And each of those cells are a unit of life. They both require energy, they make energy. And when you are in a state of distress, it takes 2 to 10 times more energy just to run functions in your body. And what this really means is the longer you are in distress, the more you are depleting and wearing your body out. You're taking the energy and siphoning it off and away from those critical, life-giving, vitality-building functions. So simply said, distress depletes, leading to dysfunction and disease. Eustress energizes, it uplifts and engages you into greater states of capacity, health, and thriving. So real time in life, you just simply bring that awareness. When do I feel depleted? When do I feel drained? I'm in distress. Let me pump the brake. Let me toggle over and let me do more of what energizes. Because my friends, stress no longer has to stress us out. It truly is here as an evolutionary teacher, calling us back into our own greatness, our own potential. So the next time your heart races, you're feeling the anxiety or the worry set in, remember your ABCs. And remember that life's limitations truly are invitations. Invitations to say yes to stress is really saying yes to you. Thank you.